Welcome to Biztech's Enterprise Technology Show. Today, as our guest, we have Yeoh, Chief Executive Officer at Temus. Temus was established by Temasek in partnership with UST to provide digital transformation solutions for the private and public sectors. Now, to tell us more about this, welcome to the show, Casey.
Thank you, Brian. It's good to be here.
Now, Casey, for a start, could you give us an overview of Temus and its history?
Certainly. So Temus was established in 2021, on the 1st of April, in fact, although it's not an April Fool's joke. And it's majority owned by Temasek, with UST as our minority partner, as well as a minority shareholder, as well as a significant partner. And we leverage UST's capabilities. They have 35,000 people globally, and they're headquartered in US and India. Now, Temus was set up to focus on this area of digital transformation. And we think it's a very exciting opportunity. If we take a step back and look at today's economy, half of the world's global businesses are powered by digital. And because of COVID, everybody wanted to accelerate this process. Everybody wants to be a digital company or aspire to be one. And we thought what better area to address than to assist companies, to assist countries with this digital transformation.
And so this is really interesting. Your tagline is around unlocking economic and social value. And your remit, interestingly enough, is not just private companies, but also public and governments as well, government-related entity. Walk us through the thinking around Temus then and how you've scaled to a 200-plus operation.
Actually, Brian, is now over 400.
I see. Okay, so you've grown even bigger.
We've grown even bigger. We've roughly doubled in size every year, both in terms of people as well as revenues, which is a nice position to be in. And when we started on this journey, which was actually before Temus was set up, we looked at the challenges of digital transformation. And we found that there are two that both companies as well as public sector face frequently. And one is what I call loosely the consulting technology or execution gap. Now, there are no shortage of pure play consulting companies that charge a lot of money, and what you get for it in return is a PowerPoint deck.
Absolutely. And some of the biggest names in the world get away and have got away with it for doing it for 30 to 40 years.
Yes. And the poor customer then goes to a third party and says, can you implement this for me? And typically the results fall short of what was promised or expected. And I think the challenge here really is that the strategy cannot be divorced from the execution. And that's what we set out to solve. So what we call vision to value, starting from strategy, transformation, but all the way through to execution and helping our clients achieve that value promised by digital transformation. That's how we set out to solve that through Temus. And the second challenge...
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. The second challenge is the shortage of digital talent. I think that was true even before COVID, and COVID just further exacerbated the challenges of finding suitable people. And that's what we set out to address. How do we provide a pool of digital talent that our clients can work with and tap on?
Okay, I want to dive in on the second one because that's really interesting. That's not a local problem. That's not a Singapore problem. That's not an APAC problem. That's a global problem. So what are you doing to address the talent issue in particular?
So let me start off by saying, Brian, that there are many conventional approaches. You can compete in the red ocean with the tech companies. You can do acquisitions, and you can set up offshore development centers. We do all of those as well. But I think that's not what differentiates Temus. What differentiates Temus is this program that we set up called Step It Up, and the IT is capital. And in one line, it takes people without any IT skills or computer science background, and in 4 months' time, we churn out full-fledged software developers. We have run 2 batches of this to date. We had 1,700 applicants for 40 positions, and their backgrounds are very fascinating. I had a chef, a personal tutor, a platform delivery driver, an optometrist, an offshore research engineer, a life science technologist, even a professional musician. And they're all now full-fledged software developers working at Temus.
And that is fantastic because one of the key things is, and obviously, because you are owned by a sovereign wealth fund, that's your background as well. You've worked in the public service in the Singapore government. This is really part of really the Singapore government's vision around retooling and reskilling constantly, isn't it?
Yes. So let me give you the context and the challenge in Singapore. As you know, it's a small country, 6 million people. Amazon did a study in 2021, which said that over the next 4 years, Singapore will need 1.2 million digital workers. We're now at 2023. Even assuming we found some way of addressing half of that, which is 600,000, we're still short of 600,000 people in digital. How many babies do you think Singapore has every year? Less than 40,000.
Net growth. It's a
Not enough, right?
net negative growth.
So less than 40,000. And even if all 40,000 babies study computer science, which is not possible, we wouldn't be able to address this. That's why we think that reskilling, taking people who thought that they were locked out of the digital economy, giving them the right capabilities to move into this path is just not just rewarding, but makes a lot of sense for Temus as well as for our clients. That's why we embarked on this journey.
So keeping to the theme around the talent, one of the ways to then leverage on technology is really this AI revolution, isn't it? Because that is transformative in terms of automating, perhaps, and the lowest lying fruit is automating lower value tasks and repetitive tasks so that these reskilled people can focus on higher value tasks.
Yes, indeed. So, and I think that the trend, everybody talks about generative AI these days, and it's getting a lot of people very excited. But the real power of that is being able to guide junior developers on this journey. It's like having your own personal supervisor that tells you what lines of code are working and what lines of code aren't working. And I saw a very compelling demonstration. We think that it will be able to improve productivity at Temus by at least 50%. And that's a very significant jump. In the past, you would be gated by whether your supervisor is available to go through your lines of code. Now you have this personal AI tech lead, which works alongside you to drive your productivity and learning. So I think it's tremendous. Obviously, there are risks around displacement of jobs. But I think in a country like Singapore, which is talent scarce, this can only be advantageous.
Okay, I want to zoom back to really your approach to digital transformation. Now, given that scenario, in terms of the talent, how are you different in your approach? So I would assume, based on our earlier discussion, that besides the strategy, you also help with the delivery.
Yes. So 15% of the people at Temus are consultants, or what they call advisory practice. The other 85% are in tech, which includes AI and data. I wanted to give you an example, Brian, of how we work and how this comes together, integrating both the strategy as well as the technology piece. So one of our clients is an insurance company called FWD. And they're already quite digitally advanced. Most of the times people can file for claims online. What's the problem with the insurance model? You only have 2 touch points with your clients. One is when they buy insurance and 2 is when they claim. Now, how do you get the insights to better serve their needs? And FWD came up with this idea that they wanted to have a super app. A super app that provides nutrition, healthcare, and even music to consumers. And we built that super app for them. It launched last year in 9 countries in Asia. Today, they have over 3 million users. And what I understand is that 300,000 of those have been supported by their insurance, had their insurance needs supported. So we took the entire process and the thinking through in terms of what kind of intervention do you have, when is the best point, what's the data that's required, and how do you pull it all together to provide a very compelling super app that people can sign on for. So that's an example of in the private sector space through insurance.
And that obviously has a huge benefit. And I see that in terms of not only it being beneficial to the policyholder, But for FWD Insurance, obviously that is a great retention tool potentially in terms of renewal of policies.
Well, it creates that stickiness, right? And I think then as you find out more and more about your potential clients, what other needs do they have and do they sign on for? You start off maybe with one particular type of insurance and then you continue to grow. Interestingly, we are in the process of introducing another enhancement, which is an AI tool. Now, insurance is very highly regulated. And therefore, companies would want to make sure that their insurance salespeople are saying exactly the right things. And what we have done is to develop an electronic coach, an AI coach, to be able to train their salespeople so that they can deliver a very consistent and compelling pitch to potential clients.
Okay, as I can see the value of that in terms of especially messaging very consistently. All organizations have a big challenge because the CEO likes to message very consistently. The marketing communication teams make sure they message consistently, but sometimes at the customer touch points, that message is not consistent.
Yes, and exactly. And in a highly regulated financial services industry, you want to make sure that you're communicating very precisely so that you don't inadvertently maybe sell the client something which they don't need or they don't want.
Now, Casey, besides FWD Insurance, could you give us some other use cases and customer success stories of customers that you've really helped transform?
Certainly, Brian. So let me give you one in the private sector and another one and one more in the public sector. So on the private sector side, one of our clients is StarHub, which is Singapore's leading telcos. And they wanted to build a consumer app so that subscribers can manage their telco services. And we did that from scratch using a low-code approach. And low-code makes things much faster because they're modular. We did that in a record 6 months. And after launching that app, which is the first business-to-consumer app using low code, their subscription rate grew by 5-fold. And the user experience has been very positive. You can see a lot of accolades that StarHub has enjoyed. And I think it's a great partnership, which can only provide a platform for them to grow even further.
So those numbers really give impetus to the premise that digital transformation is not just about efficiency. It is also about bottom line impact on the bottom line. 5 times is a huge number.
Yeah, actual value delivered. And it's because I would argue it's probably because the experience is so much better compared to competitors, right? Nobody wants to go on a phone call and wait for 30 minutes for someone to serve them. They just want to be able to get what they need with as little contact point as possible, right? And this app actually enables that. The second example I wanted to give you, Brian, is our work with one of the public sector agencies in Singapore called the Building Construction Agency, BCA. And we won a tender to digitalize their case management. So BCA, like many agencies in the regulatory space, do a lot of work in security, and in surveillance, inspection, and enforcement. So they would go and visit buildings and make sure that they comply. And in the past, it used to be very manual. And what they're doing now is to have a software as a service platform, a SaaS platform, which assigns cases automatically, depending on who's around the area, who has the bandwidth, allows them to submit the pictures taken and file those reports. But it requires, therefore, also for them to relook at their processes and go through what we call change management in terms of their user journeys. And that's the entire work that we've undertaken for them, including connecting at the back end, both with the companies in this space, as well as the other agencies and other ministries. So that's the piece of work that we've taken, and that should drive also productivity within the public sector.
And Casey, as you were explaining this, I was visualizing processes in my head because I was thinking of the back and forth paper and how it's eliminated and how authorization and approval by the supervisors as these are submitted can be literally done on the fly,
Yes.
saving valuable time, obviously money as well, and also then a feedback loop. If there are violations, then they are much more quickly able to send notification for rectification.
Yes. So all of this is done digitally now, right? You can, in most cases, you will use your mobile phone. The inspectors will go there, take a picture, and then submit that automatically to their supervisors. And you can even see who has the bandwidth to take on more jobs because it's a case management process. So all of that drives a greater level of productivity, accountability, and responsibility within the public sector. Singapore, as you might know, has aspirations to be a smart nation, and I don't think many countries have I don't think that many countries have a good chance to realize it as Singapore, given how we're small and compact and very forward-looking.
And Singapore was also, I think, from a smart nation perspective, an early adopter because it was already digitally very savvy and also wired up early on.
Yes. So the broadband, the connectivity, all of that facilitates that digital transformation as a nation. Of course, what it means is that individual agencies then have to undertake how this impacts their own processes and how do they make it citizen-centric so that ultimately people in Singapore enjoy the benefits of this digital transformation.
Now, Casey, Temus will turn 3 in April. What are your strategic priorities for the next 12 to 24 months?
So, Brian, when we first started 2.5 years ago, we were looking for people to give us an opportunity to demonstrate what we believe differentiated Temus. I think we have not a long track record, but at least somewhat of a track record today. My focus is now to make sure that we can double down on this, build a franchise which is compelling, build a value proposition that customers like. And secondly, also to double down on the Step It Up program, because I fully believe that the shortage of digital talent is going to be what impedes many companies from executing on their digital transformation plans.
Now, is an expansion of your regional footprint on the agenda as well?
Yes. So we set up an office in Hong Kong recently. So that will be, and not surprisingly, Hong Kong is location for many insurance practices, and that's where we think we can build on what we've done so far. I feel that we have not done full justice to the market in Singapore, and there's a lot still to be done here, including with the public sector. But after that, obviously, we'll also look at opportunities within the region. I wanted to share an interesting statistic with you, Brian. So in 2022, the Southeast Asian digital economy is estimated to be worth around $200 billion. By 2030, it's estimated to be somewhere between $600 billion to $1 trillion. So there's a lot of exciting opportunities, growth opportunities, not just for Temus, but for the industry as a whole. And we want to see how we can be part of that growth.
And now with your 400 plus staff, what do you envision your size to be in the next 2 years?
Hard to say with any degree of precision, but we have doubled every year since we were set up. And I think, well, if the business allows it, we should be of the order of about 1,000.
Okay, that's great growth to look out for. Casey, it's been a fascinating conversation. I've learned a lot, and I will be tracking and watching Temus as it grows over the next couple of years. But before we leave this conversation, any final thoughts you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yes, I think so Brian, thanks for this opportunity. The challenge for digital transformation, I think, lies in 2 specific gaps. One is the ability to combine strategy together with technology and execution. And secondly, to be able to find the right types of digital talent to enable that. And I think Temus is well positioned to address both of those concerns.
Casey, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been great having you on.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we've been speaking to Casey Yeoh, the Chief Executive Officer of Temus. I'm Brian Fernandez, and you've been watching and listening to Biztech's Enterprise Technology Show. Catch the conversation and much more on www.biztech.asia, as well as our social media platforms. You will also catch us on our syndicated TV stations, radio stations, and third-party websites. Thanks for tuning in.